This is Jennifer Hale, and you're listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. And, I should go.
The tangents and squee continue all the way to episode 152 of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast, and I just spent 4 days in downtown Indianapolis with 60,000 people. How was your weekend? Welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. So glad you could join us. Let's start off like we do every week. We'll go on the virtual table and see who joins us this week.
This is Brittany Bethlehem. This is Sally from Wisconsin.
This is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. Hello, everyone.
Hello. Hello.
Hopefully everyone who was in the path of the eclipse today got to enjoy it at least a little bit. Hopefully. Mm-hmm. So.
Hopefully you all wore protective eyewear and not blind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I had to share with Chauncey, but yeah, we had our glasses, and it was kind of cool, except for the clouds come rolling in this morning. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be a nice day for the eclipse, and then it started, and just big white fluffy clouds the size of a football field. It looks like. Just come rolling in. I'm like, alrighty then. That's the way we're going to do things. So every now and then we get a break. Be like, glasses! And take a look. So, but I did get to see it. We were at 90 or 92% totality in downtown Indianapolis. So, it was pretty cool. It did get a little dark, not like super dark, but it did get dark.
That was cool watching it on. I was watching the news and like the cities, like how dark it got.
Some spots.
When they had I was like, holy cow! It's like midnight.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how much percentage totality and cloud cover and that sort of thing makes a difference. So. The temperature definitely dropped. That I could definitely tell. It went from like 90 degrees to like, I don't know how much colder it got, but it was a significant temperature drop during the eclipse. But it was kind of fun. We had a nice little, there were pockets of people on campus. There was an official viewing party over there's a courtyard by the library, and we could actually hear people cheering. From over there. There were crowds of people in the law school across from the building where I work in, and there were people in the lawn there, and we were up on the balcony up on the 5th floor, so it was a nice little break in the work day, especially for it being a Monday and the first day of fall semester classes, so yeah. It was fun, and now we wait for 7 years till the next one. So.
Yep.
So we'll have to put find a good spot for our glasses and hope that they don't get damaged in the next 7 years.
It looks like it's going to go through Indiana again.
Yes, supposedly we're going to get 100% totality with the next one in 2024. It was pretty cool. Anyway, that's our science for the day, I guess. And once again, excuse my voice. Coming off of a convention, it actually wasn't that bad until earlier today. So I think it's a combination of getting back to work and talking. Because I didn't really do a whole lot of talking the weekend, but I did some, and allergies actually more than anything. But anyway, so we're gonna deal with this again. Yay! But first, let's get into the news. Not a lot of news, actually. We only have one piece of news, and unfortunately, it's a piece of 10 o'clock news.
Yep.
So we were saying before we started recording, maybe one of these weeks we will go a week without having to talk about someone passing away, but it's not this week. to quote Aragorn. Yes, it was yesterday, right? Mm-hmm. The news broke that comedy legend, and I spelled comedy wrong in the notes. What is wrong with me? He would probably think it was funny. I don't know. But comedy legend Jerry Lewis has passed away at the age of 91. Other half of Martin and Lewis.
Yep.
The Colgate Comedy Hour, which we have on DVD. I don't know where Chauncey got it. It was something he brought into the marriage with his extensive DVD collection, and we have watched it a few times. And
yep. The Hey Lady routine and the Don't Lick It routine for the ice cream.
One of the pinnacles of comedy back in the day, both as one half of Martin and Lewis, which it makes you wonder how those two were able to go for as long as they did, almost a decade as a pair, considering the two hated each other.
Yeah, exactly.
But then, of course, Jerry had his own career outside of being, the other half of Martin and Lewis, with an extensive film career as a funny man. And then also the other thing that he was also well known for was the telethon he'd hold every Labor Day weekend to raise money for muscular dystrophy. Which I always remember being on, turning on the TV over Labor Day weekend, and there would be Jerry Lewis raising money. He was one of the last of a very particular ilk of comedians that vaudevillian, just old enough to have been part of vaudeville, but at the end of that era, going into TV and movie performances instead of on the stage. He's got an extensive body of work, which thankfully will live on. I have seen a few articles that speculate maybe now that he's passed, that one of his most famous films that has never seen the light of day might finally be released. What was it called? What, The Day the Clown Cried? Is that the official title of it?
I believe so. Yes.
Yeah. So, but it's kind of legendary because it was something that Jerry was very passionate about making, and he took several years to make it. It was a passion project for him, but it never got released for one reason or another. It depends on who you ask, I think, the reasoning why it's never been released. But, again, I'm sure that will be up to, if any, instructions he left behind for his family and his family, or whoever's in charge of his estate, to decide whether that ever gets released. But there's obviously there's a bazillion, I exaggerate, but a bazillion other things that he was part of and started that you can watch, like the Colgate Comedy Hour. It's definitely an interesting thing to watch. I mean, Jerry is hilarious. He always has been. His voice and the slapstick and his rubber face and the facial expressions he was able to do next to Dean Martin's straight man.
And sometimes you could just tell Dean Martin was just trying not to completely break out laughing.
Yeah. Sometimes
it worked, sometimes it didn't.
Yeah. And I think other times you look at Dean Martin's face, it's like, is he trying not to laugh, or is he trying not to punch Jerry in the face?
That too.
Yeah. Oh. It's a big loss to the Hollywood Hollywood stars, but his legacy shall live on. And that's actually it for news, unfortunately. kind of bites to have our only piece of news be a piece of bad news, but oh well, it happens. So.
And one little bit of housekeeping.
Yes.
You still have a little bit of time left to make your choice for September's book choice over on the Goodreads poll.
Mm-hmm. A little over a month to go, I think.
Yep.
So. Vote. Not vote early, vote often, because you can only vote once. But
you can change your vote.
But you can't change your vote, so you can vote, and then if you change your mind, change your vote. So there you go.
Yep.
You have time to vote and then possibly change your mind. How's that?
Yep.
All right. Let's move on to this week's topic, which is Gen Con 2017 or hashtag Gen Con 50, because it was a banner year for Gen Con this year, the 50th anniversary of the greatest 4 days in gaming, and oh my goodness.
And your cosplay turned out awesome.
Thank you. I will get to that. I will get to that. So, yeah, Gen Con has come and gone, and I am tired. Everyone I know who went is tired. But it seems to be everyone had a good time, which is a good thing. My biggest concern was just the sheer number of people, because as we had said, every time they made an announcement, it was completely sold out. In Gen Con years in the past, things like Saturday would sell out, because Saturdays, historically for any convention, are usually the busiest day, because that's the day most people have off work, and that's the day that they attend. That's usually also the day that things like a cosplay contest usually occur on a Saturday, and those are a big draw. So yeah, but this was the first year that every single day and badge type of Gen Con had sold out. Which for 4 days, that's saying a lot. So 4-day badges sold out every single, day. Family Day sold out. I had heard numbers going into it before it even started. Last year, it was 50,000 people, I think, was the attendance number. As far as what they count at, like, the gates. They count gate entrances, but that also includes people going in and out. And then they count individual attendees, and last year it was 50,000. This year, officially, according to the press release that they released earlier today, it's 60,000. I had heard stories of anywhere from 70 to 80,000 going into it, and over the course of the weekend, I kept hearing numbers said by people. But officially, 60,000, which, all things considering, I think is actually probably accurate. I was really afraid that the crowds would be stifling, that it would just be wall-to-wall people, and you couldn't maneuver to anywhere. It would take you forever to get, from, a hallway to the bathroom or something. And I never felt stifled or claustrophobic, which is good. I think a lot of that had to do with the programming and the things to do being spread out quite a bit. Gen Con is huge. It always takes over the convention center, the entire convention center. Every floor and hallway and wing is being used for something. And then the 5 or 6 hotels surrounding the convention center that get used, not just for people to stay in, but programming things like Trade Day, and other like very activities that have a large draw, like D&D takes up an entire spot in a hotel. LARPing takes up a spot in an entire hotel. So that helps ease the burden on the convention center. Last year, it spread into Lucas Oil Stadium, but only the hallway that connects the convention center to Lucas Oil and that floor where they had the cosplayers, the cosplay related panels, and the anything anime related in the rooms there. This year, they didn't have a whole lot in the hallway. They had a few tables in the hallway, and then that all the anime was still in that first floor, along with Endless Dungeon or True Dungeon or whatever it's called. But then they actually moved out onto the football field of Lucas Oil Stadium and set up. That's where you found the kids area, the kids play area. Excuse me. The 24-hour gaming library where you could go and check out games to play. And that is also where they had the spot where you could do the fighting with foam weapons. And they also had like laser tag or something set up. It was a small setup where it looked like laser tag. Or something very similar where it looked like they were playing Capture the Flag. And then they also had the museum for the 50th anniversary, which I didn't get over there until Sunday morning, just because I got so busy with other things. I'm like, I need to make it over there. I need to make it over there. I need to make it over there. And I forced myself to get up and get there before opening on Sunday, just so I could get over to Lucas Oil and get that, and finally get over there and see it, the museum, which was pretty cool. It was weird to be inside Lucas Oil Stadium, not necessarily for that, just because the novelty of being inside the football stadium is not that exciting to me, because I come from marching band, and I marched at the RCA Dome for 3 years in high school. So the idea of being, this is where the Colts play, it's not that exciting for me. But it was kind of surreal to be inside Lucas Oil Stadium, considering I had just been there literally the Sunday the week before for the Colts game. I sent a text to my mom. I'm like, this is the second Sunday in a row I've been at Lucas Oil Stadium for something. I found that a bit funny. But the museum was pretty cool. They had the entire football field covered in that like hard plastic click together flooring that they use for like concerts and stuff to help protect the football field. But then they laid out carpet and set up, they had these giant bookcases to help kind of frame it off. And those were filled with old programs from the early days of Gen Con, and they had like coverings with like a timeline from like the early days of Gen Con up to now, and copies of games that have debuted at Gen Con throughout the years, and other pieces of memorabilia that have ties to Gen Con. And what's funny is the area for the museum, the carpeted area, and I got pictures of it and I posted on our Instagram, and I don't think it really does it any justice to show how small it is, but that carpeted area is approximately the same amount of space that the very first Gen Con ever took up.
Holy cow.
So it was tiny. the very first Gen Con. It was like a single room at the Lake Geneva Horticultural Center.
You've come a long way, Gen Con.
A little bit.
Yes, it has.
So like standing there, and I'm like, okay, well the carpet goes from there to that's not very big. And to think now it takes up all of this space is in 50 years is kind of crazy. But it was kind of cool to see, the growth and all the things that Gen Con throughout the years, and I got as much video of the stuff as possible. I took so much video, so hopefully I will get that up, edited together and up on our YouTube channel within the next week or so, so people can see that some of that. But that was kind of cool. I will say it felt kind of empty. And I don't know if that was because I went first thing Sunday morning. And so in general, there's just kind of this feel of just like that conventions get by Sunday, where you're like, okay, last day, let's just get through this. So maybe people were just kind of slow getting going. But it kind of felt kind of empty, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they could utilize that space better if that's something they decide to continue to do. I don't know if the museum would be necessary again until they reach another banner year or benchmark year, but it just seems like maybe if they're going to continue to use the football field, that maybe they could utilize it a little better. But I never made it over there any of the other days where it would possibly been busier. So I may have got a false sense of, how filled it could be. So I don't know. That whole thing with using Lucas Oil Stadium and like last year having the cosplay down there, and I know the cosplayers that had tables and were doing programming down there, I know they felt abandoned because they just felt like nobody knew that they were down there. Unless you were a cosplayer already and specifically looking for cosplay stuff, people in general were not wandering over there. The general population were not coming over there, not realizing that there was stuff to see and people to talk to over there. So I don't know. Coming from a cosplayer's perspective, the way that Gen Con treats cosplay even now seems a bit like they either don't get it or they don't care. And I don't know which it is. I attended a panel. It was a retrospective panel on Sunday, and it was with the gentleman who owns Gen Con, and then the gal who's the current person in charge, and some of the people who've been in charge in the past. And they were talking about the history of Gen Con and what it's like to run it. And they talked about, how it, one of the guys was the one who had to make the decision to have them move from, it started in Lake Geneva and then moved to Milwaukee. And then they outgrew Milwaukee, and, his board or whatever came to him and said, we need to move. We can't stay here. The convention's getting too big. And at first he's like, no, we can't move. I like it. We've got everything here. We like, I like it here. We can't move. And then ultimately, he listened to reason, and he was the one to make the decision to have it moved to Indianapolis. And it didn't go over well at first. Now, people are all like, yeah, this is great. But they were talking about how the convention Gen Con has expanded from being its sole focus being gaming to having things like, a writer's symposium, a film festival, cosplay, and that sort of thing. And he even said, in the early days when cosplay, before it was even called cosplay, but just people dressing up was becoming a thing at Gen Con, he didn't like it. He thought it was stupid. And I don't know if maybe some of that prejudice is still there, and that's why cosplay is getting treated the way it is even now. I mean, they've got a costume contest that's been going on for, this year was the 32nd cosplay contest, so they've at least acknowledged it enough to have a competition for the past 32 years. But everything else, it seems to be, to me, that, Gen Con is still just, like, very hesitant to give in to cosplay as a thing that is part of Gen Con. And, as a cosplayer, I find that kind of unfortunate, but, obviously, their focus is gaming. It's just, there's a reason it's called the 4 greatest days in gaming. But there's a lot of crossover in that community. There's a lot of gamers who love to cosplay. There's a lot of cosplayers who love to game.
Exactly.
So, you're alienating, I don't know what percentage of potential attendees, but you are alienating, at least a portion of your attendee base by not embracing the cosplay community more and doing more to help build that community up. So that's my 2 cents there. But let's backtrack a little here to the beginning of the convention. I went and got my badge on Wednesday, not long after the line opened up for pickup. There's being press on a press badge. Thankfully, I can go to trade day and get my badge, which means I have less of a wait to get my badge. Unfortunately, if I pre-registered for any events, I still have to go stand in the other line to go get my tickets for any events I registered for. Which by the time I got my badge and then wandered over to the convention center, because trade day's in the JW Marriott, which is that big shiny building that the city built for the Super Bowl. The line, it was a decent length. I've actually seen it longer, and it moved fairly quickly, especially because there were no sales, no badge sales. The booths that they normally would have used for badge sales could be strictly pickup. So that actually kind of worked in their favor, and you didn't have to worry about, am I in the right line, because there was just will call, and that was it. Unless you needed to buy generics, and that was a completely different spot. So you couldn't really get confused on where you needed to be, which that was kind of nice. So I got my badge, I got my tickets, I went back to work to try and, get work situated as much as possible, since I was going to be off the rest of the week. And then Thursday, the convention really started for me. And unlike last year, where, I was there before the doors opened for the exhibitor hall, and, I hit the ground running on Thursday and just kept going. And then by Sunday, I wanted to die. I was like, okay, we're not doing that this year. Pacing yourself is important with any convention, but especially this one. So I took my sweet time getting there. I slept in a little. I got up. I put on my cosplay. I'm like, I really don't have anywhere specific to be till like lunchtime. So I took my sweet time getting there, and that was a good thing. So I only cosplayed 2 of the 4 days, which is another thing I did to not completely wear myself out, which was very, very smart. I'm so glad I decided to go that route. So Thursday I was in Jessica Jones. Oh my God, it was so hot. So hot. I got home at the end of the day. I told Chauncey, don't ever let me wear her in the middle of summer ever again. She is a hot cosplay to wear. But if it wasn't for the fact that I had photos scheduled, I probably wouldn't have worn her at all. That and the fact that the Defenders dropped the very next day. But I got my photos done with Eddie from Eddie B Photos. He's a fantastic dude. I felt bad having him work because he'd been sick and was still ill. Actually, it wasn't anything contagious, but he was on pain meds for kidney stones. Hopefully he doesn't mind me saying that to all of our listeners, but he was a real trooper and shot, and I haven't seen anything yet, but I'm excited to see what he captured, and hopefully it was totally worth melting completely for. So, and then I did do one press-related thing Thursday, where I went to a presentation and a Q&A for a company / organization. I don't know if the company's exact say the name is as their product, but what they were promoting and presenting was it's called Game on Tabletop. And it is a crowdfunding platform specifically for tabletop gaming. So RPGs, miniatures, card games, board games, as long as it's not a video game, but anything related to that. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an actual game, just something related to it. So if you're like, I've got a new idea for miniatures, that would be something that you could, potentially, put on their platform. But they have taken some of the, I've never actually put anything on Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything like that, so I can't speak from personal experience. So I wasn't aware of some of the issues, I guess, with Kickstarter. Where the platform isn't necessarily that intuitive. There's some ease of use issues that Kickstarter hasn't quite ironed out or bothered to iron out at this point. And they've taken that and fixed it. But the whole focus of their platform is specifically for the gaming industry. So if you're a potential game developer or someone who's developing something for games, I would at the very least look into it. It doesn't hurt to contact them and ask and see what they can do for you. That's kind of their biggest thing, is they're going to be a more hands-on concierge type platform where they will walk and help you through the entire thing, from getting it on the website, helping you get graphics and that sort of thing up there so that people can see what it is they're paying for, instead of just a bunch of text. They'll help you do things like figure out shipping so that that's not a surprise at the end, so that's something you can actually factor in when you're coming up with your monetary levels. They've got a calculator that you could, based on weight and location, so you know exactly what shipping is going to cost you. If someone backs you so that they're getting 3 tiers and it's going to weigh 20 pounds and you need to mail it to Australia from Chicago, they can help you figure out exactly what it's going to cost you as far as shipping is concerned. And then they'll also help you figure out the taxes end of it as well, and make sure you get the proper paperwork you need for taxes for whatever country you're in, which apparently is something Kickstarter doesn't do.
Ooh, ouch.
I thought that was kind of cool. You know, I don't have any ideas for anything that would need crowdfunding that's gaming related, but being involved in the community, I know a few people that I may have to point them towards that and be like, hey, look into this instead of using Kickstarter. And then for the people that are buying, I think it'll make it a little easier too, because the easier it is for the person selling or, you know, getting, you know, trying to raise funds, easier it is for them to get through the entire experience from beginning to end, the easier it is for the person buying or backing. Because from I've never backed anything on Kickstarter either, but from people I know who do on a semi-regular basis, the biggest thing is, even if the Kickstarter's successful, they a good number of the time don't get their stuff, or they don't get it for a very long time, because the person, you know, producing, you know, the product either comes up with an issue with production or shipping. Those tend to be the biggest things where people get hung up. Is they, you know, if they've got a manufacturer lined up, that falls through, or they haven't got a manufacturer lined up, and it takes longer than they think, or they don't realize, you know, they get hung up on shipping, because trying to figure out how to ship things to people, especially internationally, and not spend all of the money they just raised, just on shipping. So I think maybe with this particular platform that'll help smooth everything out, so both backer and backee have a much more pleasant experience. So I will put a link to that on there in the show notes, a link to the website in the show notes. And then I did wander the vendor hall a couple of times. It was usually just passing through and trying to get from one end to the other. So I didn't see or do a whole lot in the vendor hall on Thursday. I actually ended up closing out the day hanging out with Scott and Rico from Gaming with Scott, and ended up on 2 recordings, actually. They were talking to Rob Southgate, who Southgate Media Group is actually a podcasting, I don't know what the proper word is, but Rob, it's a network, is really what it is. It's a podcasting network that Rob manages about 100 different podcasts, including Gaming with Scott, so Rob helps with bandwidth and storage space and that sort of thing. And so, but I knew of Rob. And we've shared some of the things from other shows like Gaming with Scott. He's actually shared some of our stuff before on the social media. So I knew of Rob, but I never actually met him because he lives in Illinois. So it was nice to finally meet him in person, which was kind of cool, and get to listen to Scott interview him about some of the things the Southgate Media Group is working on. They've got a Kickstarter going for a book that Rob wrote about podcasting. And it's not like a podcasting like 101. Like, this is how you podcast, because there's enough of that out there. The internet's your friend. You can find out all that information if you need it. But what he wrote is he approached the people who host shows within the Southgate Media Group, like Scott and his other co-hosts, and asked them a bunch of questions about their experience podcasting, and things like, how they got started and how it's affected their life and that sort of thing. So it's more of this is what podcasting is like as a podcaster. This is what the podcasting life is like. And I think that's the name of the book, actually, is Pod Life, I think. But they've got a Kickstarter going to raise money strictly for editing and printing. So I will put a link to that in the show notes as well. So that was kind of cool. And then Rob had to split, but Scott went ahead and we did a second recording, and it was just Scott and I just kind of chewing the fat about Gen Con and what I was looking forward to for Gen Con. We talked about cosplay and the Five-ish Fangirls and what we're, beyond Gen Con, the kind of things that we're, looking forward to through the rest of the year. Things like Time Lord Expo and that sort of thing. So, so that was kind of a fun thing. And then I went home because I was tired. It was I didn't want to overdo myself on the first day. So that was a nice.
That sounds like a jam-packed full day.
It was kind of a jam-packed day for considering how late I got there. But considering I spent like the last 2.5 hours sitting in a chair, it wasn't terrible. And then Friday was a very busy day. Friday I was back in podcaster mode, so no cosplay. And I did a good number of interviews. I went to the booth for a company called MetaArcade, and they were sharing booth space with Flying Buffalo, and they were working together. And what MetaArcade is doing, I spoke to David, who's the founder and CEO of MetaArcade, and what they've done is they've taken a RPG called Tunnels and Trolls, which was the second ever RPG of that ilk to ever be released after Dungeons and Dragons. So Dungeons and Dragons came first, and then Tunnels and Trolls came after that. So, but they have taken the game Tunnels and Trolls and digitized it and made it a playable app. So you can play it on their mobile app, which is available now for Apple and Android. So it's both in the Apple Store and the Google Play Store for Android users. But they've adopted that, but now what they're doing is, and getting ready to release, is the Adventure Creator, which allows people to take the same platform that they use for Tunnels and Trolls and the various adventures you can play in it already, and allow people to make their own. So if you've ever wanted to make your own RPG, in their app, if you want to play it, it's not overly complicated. It's very much like a choose your own adventure. Actually, they have me play one of the storylines, and it's easy. I mean, it's got sound effects and music, and essentially what you do is you pick a character, you pick an adventure, and you play through it until you either win or you die. and it just it tells you to it allows you to essentially choose your own adventure. So it's like you come across 4 doors. Which door do you want to, and it gives you a description. It's like, which door do you want to choose? And then you choose and you hit certain spots where you have to roll die, and it does it electronically for you. So it does all the math for you. Occasionally you have to roll the die, and that'll decide whether you are successful or not in wherever you are in the adventure. The adventure I played, I ended up dying. I got attacked by a swarm of vampire bats and got poisoned and fell off the bridge I was trying to cross and fell to my doom. So
Yikes!
Like, oh, I died.
You went out with the bang at least.
Yep. If you're into that sort of gameplay and that storytelling, because unlike the whole idea between Tunnels and Trolls was that the gentleman that created it discovered D&D and took it to a bunch of his friends that were they got together and played things like bridge and that sort of thing. And he got got a copy of the first edition of D&D when it first came out, went to his friends and said, "Hey guys, you want to try this?" And he read through it and realized, this is way too complicated. I don't like it. I'm going to make something simpler. And that's where Tunnels and Trolls came from. If you've ever played D&D, it can be slow going from what I understand. It is very, the story is important. It is very mechanical in its gameplay. And that's why campaigns can take years to get through. The idea of Tunnels and Trolls is it's not so much concerned. They streamline the mechanics, things like, having to roll die to figure out if you're successful in opening a door or something, and streamline that so that it allowed the gameplay to be faster and focus more on the story than the mechanics. And then the now app version essentially allows you to play by yourself. So it's kind of like playing solitaire, but for an RPG. So, if you've got to take a 2-hour flight somewhere and, you don't necessarily want to read a book or watch a movie or whatever, you can play, an RPG scenario and, see how you do on the app. But the adventure creator will allow people to create their own. It's got, a very, what seems to be what I was shown was seems to be a very intuitive interface as far as entering, scenarios and creatures and your own artwork. If you like, they've got a database of sound effects and like ambient sounds and that sort of thing. So, if you're a burgeoning, game creator, specifically for RPGs, and want to, tell a story, if you got an idea for a story, this could be a way to do it. So, but that'll be coming out later this year, the creator platform, but you can play the pre-made games already on the app. That was David.
Let's introduce yourself first.
Sure, I'm David Reid. I'm the founder and CEO of MetaArcade.
All right. So explain to us, I guess, what MetaArcade
does.
Sure, absolutely. So at MetaArcade, we built a platform to allow anybody who can write a story to create and publish their own RPG adventure without any technical or artistic skills required for free.
That's good.
And we've started by building this platform and anchoring it with one of the classic, iconic tabletop role-playing games, Tunnels and Trolls. And so just yesterday, we officially launched Tunnels and Trolls Adventures on the Apple App Store and Google Play for iOS and Android devices. Download and play for free. We've got a half dozen adventures, including a tutorial adventure. And you can play these games for free forever, as long as you're willing to watch a few ads along the way. We don't interrupt the gameplay with an advertisement. It's just something you do prior to beginning an adventure. And once you watch one ad or spend one heart, as we call it, that'll play you through an adventure. And you can just keep doing that if you want. But if you want to turn the ads off, no problem. You can buy the adventures. They range from like $1 to $4. Okay. So the intent is to keep it kind of a low price point and to focus really on the narrative, right? So to give players an experience on mobile that is a little, it's still authentic and immersive, but a little less demanding than most mobile games are, where I got to log in every hour or somebody takes something from me. Right. And to focus again around on that idea of the narrative in Tunnels and Trolls. Now, a lot of people probably know the first role-playing game ever published was Dungeons and Dragons. Right. A lot of people probably don't know that Tunnels and Trolls was the second. Okay. And when Ken St. Andre designed Tunnels and Trolls, he looked at D&D as a role-playing game that was encumbered by a lot of the complexity of tabletop wargaming, where it was descended. You had movement rates in inches, and turns took a long time. And he was more inspired to build an RPG that felt more like a Marvel comic. You know, combat was fast, characters had interesting dilemmas to go through. And so the Tunnels and Trolls adventures, and ultimately the solo adventures, they're really big innovation, spotlight on that quite a bit. So we've gone through the process of bringing on some of these classic solo adventures. We're going through the process now of remastering all of them. There are over 40 of these that have been published in the 40 years of the game's existence. And from there, we're going to go out in, as we said, yesterday we launched on iOS and Android. This winter, we'll launch on PC, Mac, and Steam, and we'll also begin a closed beta of the Adventure Creator, which is what we could show you now.
All right.
Right now, this is our internal tool for making adventures. It's not quite ready to share publicly yet, but we're working hard to get it there so then everybody can make their own Tunnels and Trolls adventures. Okay. And when that happens, and you've made one, we'll take a quick look at it and make sure you didn't put any hate speech or plagiarism or objectionable content. Right. Assuming you're a good actor, we can then publish it for you out to the App Store and Google Play and Steam, and every time somebody plays your adventure, you'll earn a big share of all the advertising and purchasing revenue it generates.
Nice.
That's what we're doing right now.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah.
So can I show you how this thing works?
Sure.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, so what you're looking at here is what we call our map view of one of these things. And if you've ever looked at like the back cover of a Choose Your Own Adventure book now, they publish these maps that show kind of all these branching paths. Okay. This is what this looks like. And this particular adventure here that you're looking at it's one of our mini solos. This one is called Stop Thief, and it was written back in the 70s by a guy named Michael Stackpole. Stackpole got his start at Flying Buffalo working on Tunnels and Trolls, but since then it's become a New York Times best-selling author, written a bunch of Star Wars novels and graphic novels, wrote the source material for Rogue One, and in his Tunnels and Trolls adventures he set them all in the city of Gull, which has a very vibrant criminal underbelly. And so one of the adventures that we released yesterday for free, Golden Dust Red Death, is one in which you're an unemployed adventurer who looks favorably upon an offer to smuggle drugs into the city. Stop Thief is the reverse of that, where the leader of a shipping fleet in the city is trying to figure out who is stealing stuff from him, so he hires you to go investigate it.
Oh, okay.
And that begins this adventure here, where you go through the process now of infiltrating the gang, and do they trust you? Do you turn on them? Do you go with the police? All those sorts of things. Right. Going through this process. And so for each of these frames, right, a frame is sort of a room. Think of it as a paragraph in an old adventure or a page in a Choose Your Own Adventure book. A purple line is a path that I have chosen. A green line is a successful conflict resolution. I won a combat or I made a saving throw successfully. A red line is a failed. I lost in combat or failed a saving roll. And so the way this works, each of these rooms, you have a piece of art, you have story, you have choices. And so as you're making this, we have this archive of thousands of images now, most of which are from the classic Tunnels and Trolls work, but we're starting to bring in art from other sources and things. And ultimately, we intend to allow people to upload their own art. And once again, if your art is used in somebody else's adventure that generates revenue, then you get a slice of that revenue as well. So you bring in a bunch of artists that way. Same thing with music and sound effects, right? Where, we've got music. Well, this is a death frame, so not a lot of music playing on this one. But in each of these things, there is same thing, ambient noise, right? So here's our bar brawl, or, you're in the gladiator arena and you've you've offended the crowd, right? You know, just like all that kind of stuff that's happening, and dozens and dozens of sound effects now in the beginning of you know, here's the gate opening at the or the alarm bell going off. So it's that sort of a thing where now for each of these frames, right, you have art, you have audio, and then you enter your text here, and then using a WordPress style interface, you're able to just sort of drag and drop and figure out, add a combat, add a saving roll. There's a, you can modify an adventurer's attributes, good or bad. You can give them items, you can take items away. And this here, again, is the tool that we are using specifically to compile these things and run them. And what you can do as well, and we can do that here, but you can edit one of these frames, preview it quickly, and you'll immediately see on the computer what your change looks like, how your text reads out, if your monster is too tough, and you can test drive the adventure. So this one's already pretty close to being done. That'll come out on Thursday next week, the first new update that we'll have.
Very nice. The layout here, it's I'm trying to think of what it reminds me of. Something programming related. My husband's a computer programmer.
A little bit of a Visio kind of vibe.
Little bit, yeah. I live with a programmer. I'm married to a programmer, so I've seen all sorts of programming languages, and it looks like something that he's probably done in the past.
Gotcha.
So, but I mean, the interface, it looks pretty intuitive for you. So if you're
really
not
the intent, right, there are all kinds of ways out there now if you are somewhat technical to make your own game, right? But most of those require a lot more technical talent than most of us have. And when I started thinking about what I wanted to do, I wanted to be involved in the creation of the game. Well, I'm not technical anymore. I've never been even a little bit artistic. So I really came into the idea of narrative of, well, if there was a platform there I could just type in my story, pull in art and audio, and compile adventures, I could be creating games. And then I realized, whoa, if I could do it, then conceivably anybody could do it. And you take a look at places like Wattpad and fan fiction, and you see all these stories being written by millions of people, consumed by tens of millions of people. Well, why not let people make something interactive as well? And in the same way that people are, making a living as Twitch streamers or WordPress bloggers, maybe somebody can make a living being an adventure writer. And part of our business here is that we are only here to publish your adventures. If you write something and your plots, your characters, your world gets popular with an audience and you want to go write a screenplay, that's all yours. We have nothing, we're not in your way, you don't sign any rights over to us for your intellectual property. Obviously, you can't take the Tunnels and Trolls IP. But conceivably, this is something that we see ultimately growing into any genre, science fiction or romance or horror or education or what have you, right? But, we're a little indie studio right now. We're just getting started, and we're really excited about how the audience is reacting to Tunnels and Trolls already. We're really excited about what happens when we put that adventure creator out there and see how people work with it.
Now, will you be offering some sort of technical support for people who, maybe get into it and are like, I'm stuck?
Well, a little bit, yes, but the hope is that it works on its own. And it's not hard for people to figure out how to do it. In the same way that in the game itself here, right, we've already started working on this. So let me pause my adventure here. So we've got a tutorial adventure in the game that kind of teaches you how to play this thing, what the rules of Tunnels and Trolls are, because they are a little different from other RPGs. Well, not hard for us to make a tutorial in the adventure creator about how to make an adventure. So we think that'll solve a lot of the problems, but inevitably people will get stuck somewhere. There'll be a certain amount of support we can provide. Similarly, what we know is people will be like, wow, how do I see how many royalties I'm earning? I need to do a 1099. I mean, these are the kinds of things we need to do before we really bring the adventure creator out. But the core tech of making adventures is working. We're going to want to keep adding more features to it. It's not programmers who are making our adventures. It's interns who are studying English at the university, things like that. If I can make one of these, a lot of people can make one of these.
Very nice, very nice. And then I guess if people want to keep up so they can find out, when you guys make the announcement, hey, this is available, where can people...
Absolutely. Well, the best thing to do is go to our site at MetaArcade.com and sign up for our email newsletter, or follow us at MetaArcade on Facebook and Twitter. And, of course, the game is now downloadable for free on the Apple App Store and Google Play. We'll have more to come very soon. We're the team is all here at Gen Con right now, but we're going to go back to work on Monday.
All right. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And then I talked to Liz Danforth who is a artist and writer and has done a lot of the art for Tunnels and Trolls throughout the years. She's actually worked on a lot of different games throughout her career, including Magic the Gathering, and some Star Trek computer games, and that sort of thing. So I had a chat with her to learn about what it's like to be an artist for the gaming industry. And she was super nice. Okay, let's start with introductions.
My name is Liz Danforth. I am an illustrator, writer, a game developer, and designer for the last 40 years.
Okay. Well, I've got a cheat sheet here, but not everyone can see this, obviously. So, I guess give our listeners an idea of what are the sort of, properties and that you've worked on. I don't know what the proper terminology is. Is properties the right games, intellectual properties, I guess?
When I got into the industry in the mid-'70s, it was largely for things like Tunnels and Trolls. I knew the designer and the people who created it initially. It was here, draw my character, and that grew into working for Flying Buffalo directly. For 7 years, and then I went on.
It's the voice of God. Okay, I think God's done.
Okay, I'd been working for Flying Buffalo for 7 years, and then went freelance, and I had worked for everything. I'm well known for Iron Crown and the Middle-earth role-playing game, and then eventually the collectible card game. I did art and editing for TSR and the Dungeons & Dragons franchise a little while. I did work for FASA, for Shadowrun, and There were more companies I worked for than I can literally remember. I did a lot of work for Traveler. People know me for Traveler and GDW, and I did a lot for them for many years, and still am in the newer, in their renovations as well. I moved into computer games a little bit by working for Interplay. I did a few of the maps in the very first Wasteland, and I did write for the Kickstartered Wasteland 2 when it came back up a few years ago. I did the Star Trek computer game as well, two of those for Interplay, and some other smaller projects. I worked on the Tunnels and Trolls computer game, and just pretty much if somebody had a project for me and a paycheck at the end of it, I would work for them. I'm a freelancer. It means mercenary.
Yeah. But keep a roof over my head.
But yeah, it keeps the rent or mortgage paid, but it also, this is what I love to do. I grew up with games before there was a game hobby, playing bridge and Risk and Regatta, and at home I grew up with games, cribbage and bridge and backgammon.
Yeah.
And so it was a natural move once I discovered the entry hobby games, if you will, like Risk. It was a natural move for me to go into it. The art and the writing followed.
As far as doing art for games, what is the general workflow? Does someone like Wizards of the Coast come to you and say, "Hey, we need these characters"? They give you sort of a short description and say, "Have at it"?
Every project is different. I did do 50 cards for Magic the Gathering in the early days, and it was literally a case of Lisa Stevens, who now runs Paizo. We were at dinner together at a Gen Con, and she said, "Hey, we've got these cool new thing we're doing with card games," and showed me some of the alpha and beta cards. She said, "Would you be interested in doing some paintings?" I had already made my name to some extent in the RPG side, so I was already a known figure. And she said, we can have our art director talk to you if you're interested. And I said, yeah, I guess I could do that. And I had no idea what it would become. But I went on to do 50-odd cards. Yeah. For them, I did another probably 80-plus cards for the Middle-earth because my heart was in Tolkien. I'm old enough that I literally learned to read. My mother was reading me Tolkien. Yeah. The Hobbit, and I can remember that cup water moment of her finger tracking across this one shape, and it said, every time she said it looked like that lump. And I thought that was a false memory, but late in her life I said, is this true? And she said, yeah, that was a 1957 edition that we'd gotten overseas of the Tolkien books before Ballantine brought Tolkien to the U.S. And yeah, I remember reading you. I don't remember that moment, but it makes perfect sense because I was reading you that when you were a kid. And it led me here.
That's just a good plug. Read. Reading is fundamental. You never know where it may take you.
One of the places it eventually took me was a master's degree in library science. So yes, I've worked part-time in libraries most of my life, in addition to it eases the ups and downs of being a freelancer. Yeah. And, I love it. I do like reaching out, and I love imagination. I love literacy. I love what libraries aim to do. And I just love doing the artwork more. That's why I'm full-time freelance.
Right. So obviously you're here at Gen Con selling some of your wares there. But do you have stuff online that people can look you up? Patreon, there we go.
I do have a website. It is simply lizdanforth.com, but it is not getting well tended. I'm so busy nowadays that I'm not blogging as steadily as I would like to. I do have a Patreon also, just patreon.com, capital L Liz, capital D Danforth, and it's given me a amazing level of freedom to do work that most of my life I have had to do assignments. You asked about the workflow, and I failed to answer that question. I'm sorry. The workflow usually is somebody will come up to you. Every assignment is different, and they'll say, I need 10 illustrations for this book, and sometimes it'll be very specific. Sometimes it's spread the art through the book. Sometimes it's I need one drawing, or I need these 10 characters, or hey, I've put my Kickstarter patrons into this book. They need portraits. Here's their picture. Draw them into this scene, and I'll have things like that happen. But Patreon is the first time I've had a situation where I can wake up in the morning and go, I have this idea, and I can take the time to do it because I've got these people have my back. They believe in me. Yeah. And I've got one backer whose name is Nick, and he says, you make me feel like Niccolo de Medici. And I said, that's cool because you guys make me feel like Michelangelo. So I am deeply grateful for them. I do hope to expand it, but I am also keeping my commercial clients, and I also do a lot of personal commissions, and those aren't going to go away. But Patreon takes a load off my mind. Yeah. And gives me freedom. Yeah, I love it.
Totally see that. Yeah. Very nice. Well, thank you for taking time to speak with me.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to say what I've said here, and I hope it's useful to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I talked to Rick Loomis, who is the founder and president of Flying Buffalo, who were the publisher for Tunnels and Trolls. Way back in the day. So it was the friend of his that, decided that D&D was too complicated, came up with Tunnels and Trolls, had so many copies printed off and was giving them out to friends. And Rick I've got this story in the interview, but Rick, he gave a stack of them to Rick to take to a convention, and Rick was like, yeah, okay, I'll humor you. Took them, stuck them on the corner of his table, and thought, oh, well, these will never sell, and he sold out almost immediately. He's like, okay, well, I guess this is going to be more popular than I thought, and he went back and said, I want to help you publish this in mass. So that's where, that's how kind of Flying Buffalo was formed, and they still do Tunnels and Trolls. But they do they've got some new games, have done other games as well. So he was fun to talk to. He told some interesting stories of being a gaming person in the 70s. That I won't try to tell his story for him here. So you'll have to listen to the interview to hear it, but it was quite fascinating to hear some of these stories from someone who's been, stories from people that have been in the industry for so long.
Bringing that to the market.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with that. Well, first let's start with introductions. We'll do the easy bit first.
Okay, I'm Rick Loomis. I'm president of Flying Buffalo. I started the company back in 1970, so this is our 47th year.
Yeah.
And I'm the designer of a bunch of games. I wrote Buffalo Castle for Tunnels and Trolls. I designed all the expansion sets for the Nuclear War card game. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona, if anybody cares.
So one of the things that the entire time I've been in the booth that they keep telling me, Rick was very integral into Tunnels and Trolls, because Tunnels and Trolls was the Dungeons and Dragons was first, Tunnels and Trolls was second. This is it's a very important part of gaming history. So I guess tell us about Tunnels and Trolls and how you were involved with all of that.
Okay. Well, Ken St. Andre, the author of Tunnels and Trolls, was an acquaintance of mine.
Okay.
And he came over to my house on a game night, and one of my employees had purchased Dungeons and Dragons recently.
Okay.
And so Ken borrowed it and sat down on the couch and read through it real quick and said to himself, this is too complicated, I can't figure it out, but it sounds like a great idea. So he went home and wrote Tunnels and Trolls. And then he printed 150 copies at the local university copy center, and was giving them away to his friends or selling them to cover the printing costs. And he got down to his last 40 copies. He knew I was going to go to the Origins game convention and asked me if I would take them and sell them for him. And of course I knew that none of these would sell. This was a stupid game. It didn't have a board, it didn't have pieces, you didn't win at the end. There were no games like that, and I didn't play games like that, and I knew nobody else would. But, Ken was a friend. I didn't want to turn him down, so I took the 40 copies and set them on the corner of my table, and to my surprise, all 40 copies sold. So when I got home, I said, Ken, I'd like to publish this thing of yours. And so that's how we got started.
Very nice, very nice. So I'm coming into this somewhat ignorant because I've never heard of Tunnels and Trolls before. I've heard of Dungeons and Dragons, although I've never played it either. So I guess for our listeners that are maybe familiar with Dungeons and Dragons, which I know one of my co-hosts is, she and her husband do a D&D campaign that they've been doing for quite a while. But for those that maybe are familiar with D&D, maybe give us an idea, the Cliff's Notes version of how Tunnels and Trolls is different, and maybe why they'd want to play it.
Well, one of the things that we tell people these days is the basic difference is D&D is a miniatures game, based on a war game, and Tunnels and Trolls is a fantasy role-playing game, written by a guy who didn't play miniatures. So a lot of the original D&D rules were not understandable to people who didn't play miniatures and didn't know what they were talking about. So I'm supposed to sign something.
Okay.
Here.
Absolutely.
That's $6.
No, we're all out. So we appear to be sold out of something now.
No.
So things are going very well.
Yes.
We were talking about, Tunnels and Trolls is easier to play. It's a lot less complex. Combat is much simpler because the guy that wrote it was more interested in the story than in the details of combat. So you roll a lot of dice, you add them up, you subtract one from the other, and that's how many hits you take. So it goes a lot quicker.
Okay.
And Tunnels and Trolls actually lends itself to the possibility of playing solitaire.
Okay.
So one of my acquaintances came up with the idea of a programmed text. And that's something that was in education quite a few years ago. And it basically, the book leads you paragraph to paragraph on your decisions. And so I wrote Buffalo Castle as the very first solitaire adventure for any role-playing game. It was before Fighting Fantasy, it was before Choose Your Own Adventure. Nobody had anything like that before. And basically the book leads you through it. You have a decision to make. It says you see 3 doors. Which door do you want to go into? Do you go in the left door? Then you turn to paragraph 27. If you want to go in the center door, turn to paragraph 82, and so forth. And that became very popular, so we have a whole series of solitaire adventures that you can play with Tunnels and Trolls. So that's kind of one of the major differences.
Okay. And now, 40-something years later, we're here at Gen Con, and MetaArcade here has turned Tunnels and Trolls into a mobile app that people can play on their tablet and smartphone. Could you? I'm sure back then when you agreed to publish, this book, that it would become something that someone could play on a telephone, essentially. But how do you feel about the electronization of Tunnels and Trolls, and how do you think it will? What's the word I'm looking for? How it'll translate to those that are familiar with paper and dice and sitting around a table.
Well, of course, I'm very pleased with this. It's great that we can make more people aware of it, and make it easier to get a hold of. And some people, since the computer takes care of all the complicated stuff, all of the rules, decisions, and so forth, all you have to do is decide the strategy, basically, and that really makes it accessible to a lot more people, and I really like that. Of course, we never dreamed of that when we started.
Yes.
But now we're all over it now.
Yeah.
We're glad that David decided to do this. He's a big Tunnels and Trolls fan.
Yeah.
And he's got the expertise to do all this electronic stuff. I have some expertise in computers and electronics. I brag about the fact that I am the first person in the world to ever buy a computer just to play games on it.
Oh, really?
I mean, everybody does that now, but I bought mine in 1972, and it cost me $385 a month for 6 years.
Wow.
I had to sign a lease to buy.
What was it?
It was a Raytheon 704 mini computer.
Oh, okay.
And it had a huge 4K of memory.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it didn't have enough memory to do our bookkeeping, so we didn't do that on the computer. All we did was run our games on the computer. So I'm the only person that bought one that early just to run games on, and that was my play-by-mail business.
Yeah.
That was before Tunnels and Trolls even. What I had was multiplayer games where somebody has to be the referee and everybody else is playing a game that's got hidden movement in it. And it's very much the massively multiplayer online games that are so popular now, like World of Warcraft. That was my idea back in 1970. That's what I wanted to do, but there was no internet back then.
Yes.
And computers were very expensive. Like I said, it cost me all that money to buy one in 1972 to get going. So we did it all by postal mail.
Oh, wow.
So you got one turn every 2 weeks.
Wow.
You would fill out a form of what you wanted to do, and you would mail it to us. We would input your moves into our computer, and it would print out a results for you on a teletypewriter.
Wow.
Which would take all day. And then we would fold that up and stick it in an envelope and mail it back to you, and you'd get to see what happened. So that's what I was doing back in the 70s.
That is amazing.
So I had the solo books first idea, and I had the multiplayer computer game idea first, and then other people made millions of dollars off of both of them. So I'm still struggling to make a few dollars, but I'm happy anyway.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, well, I guess at this point, is there anything you would like to plug for our listeners? You know, what would you? This is your opportunity to hawk whatever it is that you would like to hawk.
I appreciate that. Thank you. What I have right now for sale that's very popular and very apropos, very current, is a game about blowing up the world with nuclear weapons. It's a card game.
I can see it on the pile behind you.
Oh, yes. It's a card game called Nuclear War, and it is 52 years old.
Okay.
It was first published in 1965. And I bought the rights to it in 75, and I've been selling it ever since.
Yeah.
The idea is to blow everybody else up and be the only one left. And half the time when you play it, everybody dies and nobody wins. So I call it an educational game. And I think everybody should try it at least once. And I do have a card. I'm going to give you one. I know your listeners can't see it.
Yeah.
But it's a picture of me sitting at a trade show selling Nuclear War.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. All right. So, do you have a website where people can keep up on things?
Oh, thanks for reminding me. I'm still old-fashioned. I don't remember stuff like that. But we definitely have a website. I wanted FBI.com, but that was taken when I got my domain name, so I have flyingbuffalo.com.
Okay.
Yes, the initials FBI is kind of an accident.
Yeah.
My company name originally was Flying Buffalo Computer Conflict Simulation Incorporated, which we shortened very quickly to Flying Buffalo Inc.
Yes.
And it turns out that the initials are FBI, which I have on my personalized license plates, which gets some questioning looks once in a while. But flyingbuffalo.com is our website, and we sell all kinds of crazy games on it.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And then I spent the rest of the day wandering the exhibitor hall. I did do some shopping. I did do a quick demo of a game called Cobra Paw from I don't want to butcher their because the name of the company is kind of funny. Bananagrams. It's a tile game.
I know that game. It's a word game, right?
Huh?
Is it a word game?
No.
Oh, okay.
They've got these tiles that have two icons on them. They kind of look like mahjong tiles, but they're oversized. And then they've got die that the markings on the die match the markings on the tiles, and you roll the die, and say you roll the symbol that's 3 lines and 3 yellow lines and then the white square, and you have to find the tile that matches whatever it is you rolled and grab it and before the other people playing get it. And if you roll something and it's a tile someone already has, you can try to steal it. And the whole point of the game is depending on how many players you've got, the first person to so many tiles wins. So it's real quick. You need really good reflexes. You need to be able to recognize patterns and symbols quickly, which apparently I can't. Because I was really slow. My reflexes, they were not on it. I got walloped by the gal at the booth that was demoing it for me. But it's a quick game. I mean, it's something you can play at like a dinner party. If you're having friends over or something. But I could see how it could get competitive really quick, especially with the stealing aspect.
Yeah.
So, but that was kind of fun. And then I did go and talk to one of the gentlemen at the Ravensburger booth, and they told me about the games that they had brought. I didn't get to demo anything because they were pretty busy, and all their demo tables were occupied. But I did learn about their games that they had brought, and I did buy a game called Pictopia, which is a trivia game, and the version I bought is for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they've got these cards, and they've got trivia on them, and then they've got pictures to go with it. And depending on the each trivia question has a different degree of difficulty. So depending on which question you go with, you can earn, more or less points depending on how hard you go. But at the you've got to answer with because it gives you the answers with the pictures, so it could be like different characters or whatever from the MCU, and you have the question is like who leads a double life, and you're like, oh well, it's Hawkeye, it's Hawkeye. MC, they also have a Harry Potter version, but I figured the Harry Potter version wouldn't be a fair matchup if I played against like Chauncey, because he doesn't know anything about Harry Potter. I'd totally whip his butt. So I figured maybe with the MCU one, we might be that, and our friends too. That's one we could take when we go camping with a bunch of friends, that we might be more evenly matched with that one. So I bought that, and then I spent what might be considered a unreasonable amount of time at the Exploding Kittens booth, which the Exploding Kittens booth last year, I did go and demo the game. I actually played with Tony Troxel from Indiana Geeking last year, and last year they had a countdown clock, and every time the clock would count down, something would happen, usually a giveaway of some sort. Sometimes not. But this year, their booth, they had it so that it looked like a giant, almost like a giant vending machine. But it was the giant face of one of the kittens from Exploding Kittens. And it had a glass window, and it had little buttons. Well, not little buttons, they were big buttons. And you would go up, and the buttons were labeled with what you wanted to buy. So you'd be like, okay, I want a copy of, Exploding Kittens with the meowing box, and and the Taco Cat plushie. You would push the button for that, and you hit the done button. And then there would be people on the other side with signs that would pop up in the window to keep you to go through the buying process. But they would have occasionally the funny thing, like if they were running, if they couldn't get your items quite that quickly, maybe like the little pinwheel would come up and they'd spin it, kind of like the spinny ball on on a Mac.
Mm-hmm. Processing.
Yeah, processing, except it was processing.
Cool.
And then the mouth would open up, and your purchases would pop out there on the floor. But what really had the crowds excited and made it such a fun thing to stand there and watch is one of the options to purchase was random item for $1. So I stood there for I don't know how long, and watch, and every now and then someone would just buy stuff and not do the random item. But more often than not, someone would be like, okay, I'm going to spend the $1 and do the random item. And throughout the course of the weekend, I both, while watching the booth in progress and then people walking around with their purchases in their arms, I saw things like pool noodles and hula hoops and pineapples and dog food bowls and pairs of underwear. All sorts of random things. So I wanted to get a copy of Exploding Kittens anyway, so I hopped in line and waited for my turn, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to spend the $1 on top of the money I'm spending for Exploding Kittens. Like, okay, let me see what I get. So I go up, hit the button for Exploding Kittens, hit the button for random item, hit done. They tell me my total. I give them the money. I wait. Out on the floor pops my copy of Exploding Kittens and a cantaloupe. Which then I proceeded to carry around the rest of the day. Because it was a perfectly good cantaloupe. It was actually pretty ripe. You could smell it through the rind. I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. I don't like cantaloupe, but I know Chauncey does. So if I can muster carrying it around for the rest of the day, then I'll make sure to give it to Chauncey, which I did. But that was fun. I did end up getting a paper shopping bag. So that made it a little easier to carry around all my purchases. But anytime I ran into someone I know, I'm like, I got a cantaloupe. They're like, where did you get a cantaloupe? It's Exploding Kittens. Go to the Exploding Kittens booth, give them $1 and see what you get. I was kind of hoping for a pineapple because I like pineapple better, but what are you going to do? But that was fun.
I played the Exploding Kittens app. It's so fun.
Yeah. It's fun. Their new one this year was Bears versus Babies. That was the new game this year. But yeah, that was fun. That was quite entertaining. Every time I walked by, I was like, okay, what are people getting? That actually will come into a booth that I went to on Sunday. They had a random pineapple sitting in their booth. I'm like, okay, who went to the Exploding Kittens booth? So that was fun. And then I did talk to the folks at the booth, which they are local. The creators of that are local in Indiana. And I actually played By the Rights, like 2 years ago. So the game was still fairly new. But it's another party game. So it's one it's not intensive like D&D or Catan or something. It's just a fun game to play with friends. And what it is there's 4 card types you draw from, and there's a genre, a character card, a character attribute, and a scenario. And what you do is you draw from each of those piles, and you get 2 of each, and then you put each for a movie. And the more outrageous or funny or whatever, the better. So you can do things like, well, this is a comedy musical about a slacker zombie who has to babysit a 3-year-old, or something like that. And you have players that pitch their movie to one person. Each round, one person is the producer, and the producer gets $20 million, and they can divide that however they want among the people, the people pitching their movies. The official gameplay is you go around so that each person gets to be producer twice, and then at the end, whoever has the most money wins. I played a few rounds with them and talked to them, so I've got an interview with them that I'll share in this show.
Or some people like celebrity.
I figure we keep playing too, but if you like, I don't know how well this would pick that up, but
If you're right with your
okay. So let's start with introductions. Who wants to be the talker?
My name's Chad. I'm one of the co-creators of By the Rides.
I'm Tommy.
All right. Okay. So tell us about your game here.
So it's a movie pitching game. So basically, each round you got one person who is the big shot Hollywood producer, and everyone else is screenwriters trying to pitch them their movie idea to get the producer to buy the rights to it. And then the producer will rotate each round. So you've got 4 decks of cards that you use to make your movie. You've got genre, descriptor, hero, and plot. And in order, when you read them together, they sort of form like the logline of a movie. Like the last one I just played was a holiday movie about a by-the-book mall cop buying an old ventriloquist dummy that comes to life at night. And so then you play your cards, and sometimes they speak for themselves, but a lot of times you kind of want to elaborate on it a little bit, give it a pitch, because you want to outsell your competing screenwriters to get the producer to buy the rights to your movie. So you might give it a catchy title, or cast it, put your favorite director to it, or just elaborate on the plot a little bit, whatever it takes to sell that movie. And then once everybody's given their pitches, the producer has a budget of $20 million that they can use to buy the rights to their favorite movie. So if there's one pitch that really just blows them away, they might give all $20 million to one person, or they might divvy it up like 15-5, 10-5-5, however they see fit.
Yeah.
And then once the producers distributed the money, the play rotates, everybody draws back up. You have 2 cards from each deck in your hand. You pick one of each. Maybe I should have said. And then once everybody's been producer twice, you count up your money, and whoever has the most wins.
Cool. Which we've already played a couple rounds, and right now I've got $35 million. So go me!
Been killing it.
Yeah, but I haven't been producer yet, so I think it's my turn to be producer. So
you be producer.
You guys, give me your best.
All right.
No pressure.
Let's see.
I'm a hard sell.
Okay.
Hey, Out There is good. We don't need another remake.
It's an epic fantasy, but it's kind of almost like a post-apocalyptic, kind of weird, like alternate reality. Kind of like animals have risen up from the ashes of humanity, and like kind of anthropomorphic animals. Because it's about a divorced golden retriever, and he's divorced because this drug cartel of I think like the weasels in the civilization are the kind of the drug runners, and they've kind of like taken his wife, and he's single-handedly taking down an entire drug cartel. So it's this like kind of picture this as this weird like indie like animated movie from like the 80s maybe.
All right.
That's a good one. But I think I got a winner here. I got a chick flick for you.
Okay.
And it's about this beet farmer he's a little bit robotic in his mannerisms. He's a robotic beet farmer, but it's more like he's just not. He's kind of socially awkward. But he's trying to win the heart of his crush on the last day of summer camp. Guess what, guys? It's that Office movie we've been waiting for. It's a young Dwight Schrute going to summer camp, trying to win the love of his life, and being socially awkward while he's doing it.
I like it. Oh, tough. Yeah, I think I'm you're getting 15, the Dwight Schrute. I will give you 5 for the divorced golden retriever. So, all right, I guess I get to draw some cards this time. Let's see what we got here. No pressure, no pressure.
All right. This is another kind of out there one. It's an experimental film, so we're gonna try some new stuff, and this isn't gonna be like super mainstream. This might need to be straight to Netflix. It's about a terminally ill martial arts master who he finds out he's just got a couple months to live, but he's got this one last task he's got to do, and it's about him defeating an ancient sorcerer in the underbelly of Chinatown. And so the experimental nature comes in, like as you know, when they have these fights in Chinatown, the sorcerer, it's all this really weird experimental animation and stuff. And I'm thinking, Kin Jong is going to be the martial arts master.
Okay. All right, so mine's going to be a dystopian film about a jacked up black ops commando hunting down smugglers in the Florida Keys in a badass speedboat. Oh, I see maybe Arnold Schwarzenegger trying to make a comeback here with this one.
That's a pretty awesome one. I gotta say. It's a bit of a tough round, but I think the jacked up Black Ops Commandos, I give it to 15 for that one, but
yay!
I still give it 5 for I'm just playing the long game.
Yeah. Say, I'm making out like gangbusters over here. So awesome.
You kind of play as long as you want, or until everyone's been producer twice. And
yeah.
Whoever has the most money wins.
Yep. So where can folks find Buy the Rights if they're not here?
It's on Amazon for until we run out, but we're hopefully going to reprint soon. So.
Okay.
Amazon for now. And I don't know if this will go up while we're still at Gen Con, but if it does, we're up with 3056. So
okay.
Right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And since I last played the game, they've expanded it quite a bit. There's more cards. They now have an 80s expansion pack. And they've got plans for other themed expansion packs. I was winning when I finally walked away to let someone else take my spot. I had like $65 million. Because I mean, you can play just the cards and be like, okay, this is my scenario. But the more you can like play it up, be like, okay, this is going to be the latest from Adam Sandler. You know, like do things like cast the film or expound upon the plot. The more likely you are to impress the producer and therefore, you know, get a bigger cut of the money. But it's ridiculousness is what it is, but it's funny. Especially if you're you know, you've got if you know enough about movies, I guess, and actors and actresses that you could do things like cast it, you know, or be like, this is going to be directed by Ron Howard, or, you know, that sort of thing. So the more you know about the movie industry, the better off I think you are. But you don't have to be a big old movie file to really enjoy it. So, but it's fun. It's fun. It's ridiculousness, which is always a good time. I love ridiculousness. Excuse me. And then I finished Friday with the crossplay contest, and it's something that's at least unique to Gen Con as compared to the other Indianapolis area conventions. is they do a costume contest or cosplay contest, but they also do a crossplay contest, where the idea is the people entered are do gender opposite cosplays. So you're a woman dressed as a male character, or you're a man dressed as a female character. It's not doing a gender bent. I guess you could, but you're just doing a character that doesn't necessarily fit the gender that you identify as, or you change the character so that they're no longer the gender that people think of them as. So, like, there's a gal that she did the 11th Doctor, but it was a 1950s housewife doctor, complete with Dalek baby hybrid in her stroller.
Alrighty then.
Yes. She dressed up the stroller and decorated it so it looks like a Dalek, but she has her baby inside of it, and she has she had her baby dressed as Souffle Girl.
Oh, cute.
Or, we had a fully grown man wearing a female Star Trek original series dress that his wife helped him make. So that's fun. The crossplay contest tends to be a bit more relaxed and laid back. The number of contestants isn't nearly as large, so it's a bit more party atmosphere at the crossplay contest. But it's always fun to see what people come up. I mean, it's always fun to see what people come up with cosplay wise, but specifically for crossplay is even more entertaining to see what people come up with. There's very, very, again, very talented people who come up with costumes. So that was fun. And I got to see a few friends. Lisa from Lady Dragon Creations was the one manning the door and taking people's tickets. Mogshell was the MC for one of the MCs for the crossplay contest, and then Wes, aka the Portrait Dude, was one of the judges, along with the guys from Thousand Faces Cosplay. We're also one of some of the judges for the contest, so that was fun. And then Saturday was the big cosplay day, both for me and for the convention in general. So Saturday, I finally, after weeks of hard work, both for me and my mother, God bless her for helping me as much as she got frustrated with this pattern, and I got frustrated with this pattern. We finished it. But Saturday, I finally got to debut Miss Frizzle at Gen Con, which I will say I have never felt so popular in my entire life. I lost track of how many times I would hear, "Oh my God, Miss Frizzle," while walking the hallways and people asking for my picture. It was kind of crazy. I kind of expected her to have a decent reaction, just because I know, nostalgia is a thing. People love nostalgia and reliving their childhood. I did Carmen Sandiego last year, and she got a good reception, so I figure Miss Frizzle will get a good reception, but I did not expect for it to be this enthusiastic. And I had a blast. I had an absolute blast wearing her and seeing and hearing people's reactions. I had, my dress with the space print on it. And it does glow in the dark. Unfortunately, at Gen Con, there was no way to show that off to people, so they had to take my word for it when I tell them. Which, they all hide in a closet or something. I'm like, not that work, but okay. I had I got a wig and styled it, and oh my god, that wig was heavy. That was my biggest thing with wearing this. The dress is super comfy. I do need to I either need to stuff my bra or figure out a way to make the front fit a little better. Because I don't quite fill out the front the way I thought I was going to, the way it had in previous fittings. But that's okay. Thankfully, there were no wardrobe malfunctions to be seen. But the wig is heavy. It's a super thick wig to start with. It is an Arter wig. Thank you, Arter Wigs, for making super high quality wigs that are nice and thick and have a lot of hair to work with. So, for those cosplayers that need to do crazy hairstyles, there's enough hair there to work with. But once I pulled all that hair back into the Miss Frizzle bun, and pinned it all into place and then hairsprayed the heck out of it, it's kind of heavy. And it's all in the back.
Ouch.
And it's very warm, too. Yeah, I don't know if I need to start doing some, neck exercises and build up my neck muscles or what. But by the end of the day, actually, I didn't feel too bad. It didn't, really hurt. It was just, I kind of felt like I had a weight. But it's not terrible, which is nice. And then, thankfully, she arrived in the mail on time because I'm a procrastinator and don't order things from Amazon till the very last minute. But I got home Friday evening, and thankfully they had shoved my package into the mailbox and not left it with the front office for package pickup. So Liz thankfully arrived on time from Amazon. So I found a official Magic School Bus plush Liz. She's actually a bag. She zips up in the back, and you can put stuff in her. And she's got a handle. But she doesn't have that much room inside of her, so I just carried her around for the most part. But no, I had Liz, which I think really, completed the look and made it so that there was no doubt who I was. Because it's you've got the dress and the crazy earrings and the hair. And, if you're really a fan of the Magic School Bus, and people be yeah, that's Miss Frizzle. But having Liz, I think, really just, yes, Miss Frizzle, Magic School Bus, that's who I am. There's no mistaking, the cosplay. But that, I just, she was so much fun to wear. That's all I could say, is she was just so much fun to wear. I'm already what event can I wear her to again? Yeah, she was a blast. But so that was my day, was I got to be Miss Frizzle, which was fun. Yeah, there's a lot of cosplayers there on Saturday. I heard comments both Thursday and Friday. People were doesn't seem like there's a lot of cosplayers. And it did seem kind of sparse in the cosplay population. But Saturday, just cosplay everywhere. A lot of cosplayers. I will say for Gen Con, it is nice that outside of the exhibitor hall, there's a nice long wall that they taped off and they did this last year too. They tape off a good sized section up against this wall where there's some nice natural light that comes in, and it's a nice blank wall. And it's essentially a designated cosplayer hangout, and hang out with other cosplayers, and people can take pictures easily without having to block the hallways and the flows of traffic. Although I couldn't quite figure out why, but there'd be a nice, like wall of people with their cameras and their cell phones out taking pictures of us cosplayers standing in this area, but they'd leave like a 10-foot gap between like the tape and the people taking the pictures, and so they're still in the flow of traffic. So there were several times where I'm like, people, come closer. You can come up to the tape. You'll get better pictures that way because you won't have to zoom, and you'll actually get some of the natural light coming in. The lighting's going to be better, and you'll be out of the way of the flow of traffic. But people kept, they had these walls of people taking pictures with this big old gap in between us and them. I'm like, people, come closer.
They don't bite, honest.
Most of us won't bite. There was a guy who I'm not quite sure who was with him. I don't know if it's like a sister or a wife or whatever, but he was dressed as Seymour, and he made a life-size Audrey from The Little Shop of Horrors.
Oh my goodness. Feed me. No, don't feed you.
Yeah. And whoever the gal was inside Audrey, she's articulated. She can raise the head up and down, open the mouth, open and closed. So it's like, yeah, we won't bite. Audrey might, but the rest of us won't bite. So I did hang out there for a little bit and got to see some people I know. And then I had to go to, I went to a panel about cosplay photography that was led by Wes, aka the portrait dude. So I went to, I'm not a photographer by any means. My mom is a great photographer. My brother is a great photographer. Apparently, I didn't get that gene. I don't have the eye like those two do. My mother-in-law is a great photographer. Chauncey's a decent photographer. Me, not so much. I'm like, click. Is it in focus? Great, we're good. But I did find Wes's presentation really was for photographers who either already shoot cosplay or are looking to shoot cosplay. But I found it quite interesting to hear his perspective about the cosplay community and everything from a photographer's perspective. That, and I just wanted to support him because, he was like, I'm doing it. This is like his first panel ever at a convention. So I wanted to be there and be supportive and like have, a friendly, familiar face in the audience. But I did find his presentation quite interesting, which was fun. And then the Indiana Cosplay Association, we had a group shoot outside, which was quite warm, but it was fun. It was another chance to get together and see some familiar faces, and have some photos taken, which was nice. And then I went and grabbed lunch, and then made my way. They do a parade, a cosplay parade or a costume parade before the cosplay contest. That actually starts at one end of the convention center, actually goes outside, weather permitting, goes down the street, and then goes back in. So those who maybe want to see the cosplayers, it gives people downtown who just maybe happen randomly to be there, can see some of the the costumes. The parade is not just for people who've entered the cosplay contest. Anyone can be in the parade, which is nice. But it just gives people a chance to take pictures of costumes in kind of a semi-controlled environment. Because Gen Con really is just controlled chaos. That's one of the things that in the retrospective panel I went to. But one of the gentlemen said, he's like, yeah, those of you that come and attend, you got, unless you witness something, unless you have an issue, the convention goes smoothly, but for those of us running it, it's just controlled chaos. I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. So I actually went and got something to eat while the parade was going on, and then went and got my seat for the cosplay contest. And what's nice is they do have designated seating for those with VIP badges and press. So I'm not having necessarily jostle for a seat up close to be able to see and get photos and video of the contest as it's going on. Once again, pre-contest entertainment was supplied by, what is their name? I should have written it down. I need to look them up. I think it's like a different drummer, something like that. Belly dancing. It's a local belly dancing troupe. But they do nerdy belly dancing routines. Last year theirs was Star Wars themed. This year it was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Oh my goodness. I was kind of wondering when I seen some of the pictures. I'm like, I think that's the Guardians of the Galaxy 2, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. So they did their routine to several of the songs from Awesome Mix Volume 2. With a small crossover appearance from Wonder Woman, just because she's awesome and she's, why not? So that was fun to watch. They're always entertaining, especially because they do it to nerdy, soundtracks and the like. So it clapping along to the music or singing along or whatever. So that was quite entertaining. And then the actual cosplay contest became underway. And I'm always just amazed at the ingenuity and the craftsmanship and the talent that people have in the cosplay community. The cosplay contests are one of those things that I always try to make sure that I get to at any convention. For me, it's one of those things that, is a must do, just to see the talent, that come to these conventions. And Gen Con did not disappoint. Again, they break theirs up into categories, very specific categories, things like anime, fantasy, and sci-fi, video games. They do a professional category, so that's for people that maybe not necessarily cosplay professionally, but are people who have won contests in the past, not necessarily just Gen Cons, but at other conventions. If you're a winner after so many times, it depends on the convention. Sometimes just winning once automatically puts you into the pro category. Sometimes you have to win certain awards. But these are the people that, really, really, really put the time and the money to, and are people that really know their way around a needle and thread. And of course, there's always a kids category as well, and the kids are always adorable. Just super, super talented people. Again, this year, the people that won their respective categories absolutely deserve to. What they do because they give out a winner in each category They've done a first place, second place in each category. This year they expanded it to first, second, and third place in each category. And then what they do is they take all of the first place winners from the categories and they let the audience vote for the best in show, the best overall. So we had our 8 first place winners, and they had the audience vote, and they got it narrowed down to 3 from the 8 because it was so good. You know, the people were so talented. So they were able to narrow it down to the 3, and then we had to do an audience vote again. And the gal that won Best in Show, if you go on our Instagram or our Facebook, I posted pictures of her. I got a picture of her after, but she did Queen Amidala from the Star Wars prequels. It's the Amidala with the orange and red like velvet robe and the hair in like the horseshoe shape. Yeah. She looked amazing, absolutely amazing, and she went for screen accuracy. She did, she tried to get fabrics that were the same or as close as possible. The hair, I guess took like 5 wigs. The hair of 5 wigs to get the hair. So yeah, she definitely deserved it. She definitely deserved to win Best in Show. But there were just some super, super talented people. I did see, Elena and Laura from In Sewing is Half the Battle, who we've had on the podcast. They had a group cosplay, which if you follow them on Facebook, they've been posting some progress photos and posts on their Tumblr, which goes on their Facebook, of them trying to put together this Star Trek original series group, specifically from the episode Amok Time.
Ooh.
So it's a group of Vulcans. And they ended up placing second in the group category. So, yep. So that was fun to see them again. And then that was my Saturday, and then Sunday was family day, and back into regular clothes, no more cosplay. And I went over to Lucas Oil Stadium and saw all that. And then I did, and then I went to the retrospective panel, and then I did one more interview with Chris Birch from Modiphius, which they're a gaming company. They got several different games that are part of their company, but what I specifically want to talk to him about is Star Trek Adventures, which is a new Star Trek RPG role-playing game. It is the first officially licensed Star Trek RPG in like a decade, I think is what he said. They've got right now they just have the book, the source book, and a set of dice. If you want the Star Trek themed dice, you can use whatever D20s and D6s you've got on hand, but they do have official Star Trek Adventures dice if you want. Those are available now, and then eventually they have miniatures to go with it, and some are just generic characters, things like Klingons and Romulans and that sort of thing, but they also do have miniatures for some of the core cast from Star Trek the original series and Next Gen, which I posted. I took pictures of those and posted them. And for being miniatures, and these are 32, what's the size? 33 32 millimeter scale, so they're small. But whoever like did the molds or whatever for their miniatures did a really good job, because you look at them and you're like, yeah, that looks like Patrick Stewart, and that looks like, you know, William Shatner from back in the day, you know. So they did a really good job with the miniatures, and eventually they'll have a GM screen as well for sale down the line. But their whole thing with RPG is that you can play various. You pick a starship, and then you be the crew, and you can go on different adventures, on different sections, different quadrants of the Star Trek universe. And they've got material from, and if you're going timeline-wise, as far as canon is concerned, from Enterprise up through Voyager, and everywhere. So they've got obviously original series, Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager. Right now, they do have plans to do expansions with some other licensed Star Trek things. Right now, they don't have any plans to do anything with Discovery, just because Discovery needs to get off the ground first and do their own thing, and, you know, create, you know, their canon and universe and everything, and then maybe, you know, a few years down the road, once Discovery has established itself, that they may look into sourcing material from that. But they were the booth that had the random pineapple that I talked about earlier. I was waiting for my turn to talk to Chris, and I turned around and I saw this pineapple, and I'm like, all right, who's been in the Exploding Kittens booth? And the people that heard me are like, it wasn't me, I just got here. I'm like, well, someone's been to the Exploding Kittens booth. Okay, well, before you take a big bite of that amazing-looking sandwich, why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Chris from Modiphius.
Okay. And you with the pizza?
I'm Sam from Modiphius.
All right. Okay. And we are here to talk about the newest game from Modiphius, which is Star Trek Adventures, the first Star Trek RPG in a very long time, from what I read.
8 years, I think. Yeah. So it's been an amazing experience, but we're coming, you know, it's the fourth version of the role-playing game, so
okay.
Hard act to follow. But I think it's a different approach to it, so it's worked really well. Well, Sam can tell you about. We've really gone for a more personal approach with characters from the universe telling you about their experiences there. You know, like the timeline isn't the usual. This happens at this date. This happens at this date. It's Romulan captain talking about a meeting. It's Vulcan ambassadors, you know, Klingon agents, all talking about those events. So you get much more personal kind of opinions about Starfleet and the Klingons, rather than a more dry textbook approach.
No? Those long chapters that are about, you know, timeline stuff and giving you basically a history lesson about the Star Trek universe, those kind of things always turn me off, and I never really read the chapters. But you see, all of that information really is searchable, and it's through Memory Alpha, and it's this, you know, free website that basically catalogues Star Trek and all its canon. And, you know, I mean, if it's good enough for, is it Simon? Who wrote Into Darkness?
Simon Pegg.
Oh yeah.
If it's good enough for Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
It's good enough for us. So,
yeah.
So we thought, well, yeah, Chris's brief was really, let's make this about the people. Let's make this a very personal perspective from an alternate viewpoint. So yeah, we've got, you know, it's Romulans and Klingons talking about events that happened for the Federation from their perspective, and it gives it a nice grounding in the real world.
Yeah,
in the real galaxy, or I don't know how you want to say that.
And it uses our house 2D20 system that we developed for Mutant Chronicles with Jay Little. and he did X-Wing and Edge of the Empire, Star Wars game. And it's been evolved. It's a little bit more narrative for this version of the game. We always redesign it so it feels like Star Trek. And there's a lot more, again, that personal feel comes through to the characters. You've got values like, you know, Klingons must die, or the Prime Directive is never wrong.
Right.
Technology will always save us. And that's, you know, that's very important to the gameplay.
So when our rules developer Nathan Dowdall developed the set, he was very much of the opinion that it should feel like Star Trek. And the first thing you think of is that actually a lot of the conflict resolution is non-confrontational and is not violent. Starfleet officers, first and foremost, should always try and seek a peaceful solution to things. So we have what we like to say kind of social conflict. So that's about persuasion, negotiation, stuff like that. And like you've got all their first contact stuff in there as well, like that. And then you've also got a lot of problem solving. And we had a couple of chapters written to us. I think it was John Sneed did those, who did the scientific method. You actually break down the scientific method. You go observation, hypothesis, and then you try and actually resolve to some kind of new theory and a new prototype. And you go through those processes. So you can go, this star is collapsing, how the hell do we deal with that? Well, let's invert the polarity of the warp drive and do this, that, and the other, and hopefully we can save the day. And it's ideas like that that really drive Star Trek, and we wanted to incorporate all of that into the rules as well.
Yeah. And we've got a lot planned for it as well. There's a big adventure book called These Are the Voyages coming. There is a set of deck plans of Starfleet vessels and Klingon vessels and Borg vessels, with a whole range of miniatures.
Yeah,
So
I was looking at the miniatures. I'm like, oh, I recognize some faces there.
Yeah, they've done a great job with the faces.
Yeah.
So you've got like
very talented sculptors.
Yeah. So you've got like the original crews. You've got the next generation crew. You've got Romulans, Klingons. We've got villains coming, Borg, generic Starfleet crews. If you don't want the kind of main characters, and then we've got also there's other books. Sam, you can talk about the quadrant and division.
So in terms of Starfleet, you go into one of three divisions. The Command Division, the Operations Division, and the Sciences Division. And each of those will be a supplementary rulebook. So in the Command Division book, we're putting a lot of starships, so you'll have new space frames to work with. So you can, instead of being on a usual Constitution class vessel, you could actually go back. You could go back to an NX class from Enterprise, or you go right up to date and use like a Sovereign class vessel. And there'll be lots of fan favourites and also little fan-made ones as well in there too. And then the operations book will be more focused on the kind of Starfleet intelligence side of things, security departments, the engineering department obviously as well. So there'll be cool rules about that. We'll also include in there a stripped down version of the conflict rules, so you can just use your miniatures for that. So say for example, Chris and I are the only people who turned up this week. So I'm like, Chris, you take the Klingons, I'll take the Romulans, let's have a battle. And we pick an objective and there will be some scenarios as well. And then we can play through that. And it should play in a lesser time than the kind of 3-4 hours you do for a normal game session. And the Sciences Division book was obviously a lot. We'll key in more to the kind of cooler science parts of Star Trek. We'll also talk about Q and the various really, essentially alien things that are out there, as well as talking about time travel as well. And then we're also doing 4 source books, one for each quadrant. So interestingly enough, the first source book we're going to put out is the Beta Quadrant book, because actually the Beta Quadrant has this guy's awesome. But so we'll also be doing 4 quadrant books, which interestingly enough, the first book for that will be the Beta Quadrant book, because we've got the Klingons and the Romulans in that, so we wanted to touch on those first. And Earth technically is on the border of the Alpha and Beta Quadrant, so we included the United Federation of Planets too. And then we'll do Alpha, Gamma, and eventually Delta. And each of those books will give you new species to play. So again, there are lots of fan favourites, even stuff from the animated series and potentially stuff from other licensed material that we can get our hands on. So that should be really cool. I'm really looking forward to those to give a bit more in-depth knowledge about the setting that we didn't include in the core rulebook. And yeah, the adventure book is in there. And we'll do multiple volumes of that. Yeah. So in the first one, we've got 8 standalone adventures that you can run each separately, or you can just do them as part of kind of continuing voyages. And then I haven't told Chris yet, but I want to retitle like the second volume to something like To Boldly Go or something. So each one is a bit different. And we'll have 7 or 6 standalone adventures that you can just pick up and play, and that's the idea. And hopefully we'll do a few more standalone PDFs of just one-off adventures. So you can grab the book, and then you can go, oh well, I'll grab this PDF adventure as well for a few bucks, and then I can just get on and play straight away, and we don't have to worry about writing up my own campaign or studying actual science and able to write an adventure. So loads of stuff. I'm really excited.
And it is will there be plans possibly down the road with the new series incorporating?
They don't want to cover it at the moment, because obviously they need to grow that world, and we've got plenty to keep us busy.
Well, yes.
I think if you wanted to roleplay that right now, if you're watching the show, then it's going to be pretty easy to put that ship together and the crew and the storyline as you go. So
the key thing about the rules as well is that you can just use it for any era. It doesn't restrict you in any way. So you're always looking at your attributes, and then the different skills, essentially we call disciplines that you use, are command, con, engineering, science, security, and medicine. And so they mirror the divisions, but it's only really the colour that changed over the course of, from the original series to the next generation. So it's all fundamentally still the same. So there's nothing stopping you starting in the Enterprise era or playing right the way up to Nemesis, and like, was it 2379 or something? So, even doing your own voyage like Voyager, where you're stranded somewhere and you're trying to get back, and it's about you and your crew, and that's fundamentally what Star Trek's about anyway.
So right now, what is available? And as I was waiting, people were coming up and asking questions about other supplemental materials, and they're like, "Sorry, that's not available yet."
It's just the core book and the dice at the moment. We are shipping the miniatures from our web store, but then they'll all be in retail kind of mid to late September. And then followed up by GM screen and the miniatures.
So we did a pre-order for our fans. And so those pre-orders will fulfill as soon as we've got it in the warehouse. So we'll keep people up to date with that. And then as we do that, we'll go into retail. Most of the stuff will be into retail around August and into November. And then the supplementary material will start in the new year.
And what is the website?
Modiphius.net.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'll let you get back to your sandwich.
Thank you.
So that was my last interview, and then really I just spent the rest of the day just kind of wandering. I wandered up and down the aisles. There were a few aisles that I hadn't been down yet, crazily enough as that is. And, there's still some people cosplaying, although not nearly as many on Sunday. You could definitely tell the closer it got to 4 o'clock when everything kind of officially ended, because the vendor hall closed at 4. As I was wandering up and down the aisles, like, there were booths that were almost empty. Like, they had sold out of stuff, which is always a good thing, because that means, 1, you're making money, and 2, that means you don't have to take all that stuff home. Which is always a good thing, especially for these companies that come from overseas. The less they have to ship back, the better. But it was a little crowded the last couple of hours, and I think that was mostly people trying to get their last-minute shopping in, where people are like, okay, we need to buy, these 12 copies of, Settlers of Catan, Game of Thrones edition, before they sell out or before they move, they leave for the convention. And then the last half hour, it started to get really dead. It started to get very, very empty. And that's about the time I left, actually. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start working my way towards the car and hopefully beat the rush to get out of downtown Indianapolis, which I did, thankfully. But I was tired. I was tired come Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. I stopped by the Who North America booth on my way out on Sunday, and just to say hi. I'd stopped by a couple times throughout the weekend, but just stop by once again, say hi, and see how their weekend had gone, and We got talking about Time Lord Expo because that's kind of the next big thing for both of us, actually, because we'll both be there. And Janie, I went to give Janie a hug goodbye, and she put her head on my shoulder and then refused to move. Like, Janie, you can't fall asleep on me. She's like, but I'm comfy. I said, I'm bony. At least go get a t-shirt and fold it up and make yourself a pillow or something. She's like, I'm tired. I don't want to have to tear everything down and load it in the truck and take it back to the shop. I'm like, oh, I know. I helped you do that at Indiana Comic Con. I know how much work it is, but it is what it is. You got to do it. So. But yeah, so that was Gen Con in a nutshell. There was a lot of walking, but thankfully, since my experience last year, I was able to apply that knowledge and do things differently, adjust myself accordingly. I did register for panels, most of which I never, for one reason or the other. I ran into someone and got to talking, or, an interview went long, or that sort, something like that, or, I got hungry and the line for the food trucks would be super long. So I did miss some panels that I would have liked to go to, but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You really need to, with any convention, you really need to pace yourself. You can't do everything. You can't be everywhere all at once. Gen Con especially so, just because it is so large. Unless you're planning on just going, claiming a spot and playing D&D for 4 days straight, you need to pace yourself. And even then, you should probably pace yourself. Get up, stretch, go to the bathroom, sleep for a couple of hours. But you really do need to pace yourself because it is so large and there's so much to do. I think in the press release that Gen Con sent out, that there was like, they said 60,000 unique guests. 60,000 unique attendees. There were 500 exhibitors and over 19,000 ticketed events.
Wow.
Yes.
Jeez.
So yeah, you can't do it all. Unfortunately, or fortunately. So, but I definitely, not trying to do 5 million things, not feeling like I need to be there first at everything. Trying to be there before the doors open for the exhibitor hall, especially considering I wasn't that, I'm not a hardcore gamer, so I wasn't concerned about getting something where there was a limited supply or limited edition anything. Once the exhibitor hall closed, I was pretty much done for the day, because after that, there is some evening programming, like panels and things, but for the most part, it's just gaming after a certain point. There are some after-hours events. There was the concert over at Bankers Life Fieldhouse with They Might Be Giants. I know there was a show over at Scotty's Brewhouse with 5 Year Mission. There's a local Star Trek themed band. I know the Shake-Ups did 2 shows, but those were at the same time as the cosplay contest. You need to be prepared. Wear comfortable shoes if you can help it, which I always try to do. Drink lots of fluids. Make sure you eat. Gaming with Scott, they go by the 5-2-1 rule, especially for Gen Con. 5 hours of sleep a night, 2 meals of some sort each day, breakfast and dinner, or lunch and dinner, or whatever, but 2 meals, not snacks, but 2, something that fills you up. So 2 meals a day and 1 shower with soap on your person. And you should have a good Gen Con. And I tend to agree with them, especially that sleep and the food and the showering. Very important. And especially with the food, you can't say that there's not opportunities for food unless you just sit down and don't get up and didn't bring anything with you. If you go hungry at Gen Con, unless you've got very specific dietary restrictions that keep you very limited, which in that case I totally understand that. But if you're not someone that has very significant specific dietary restrictions, if you go hungry at Gen Con, you're not doing it right. You're doing something wrong. Seriously, because there are food trucks almost,
that loaded mac and cheese you had looked awesome.
Yeah, oh my god.
Yes, it did.
And this year they expanded the food trucks because it was Georgia Street and Capitol? Is that Capitol or Maryland? One of the two. I've only lived in Indianapolis my entire life. You'd think I'd know the street names, but I still don't, apparently. Whatever that street is, they've got food trucks on Georgia and on that street that runs perpendicular to it. And this year they expanded, so they had food trucks over in the street in between the convention center and Lucas Oil Stadium. There's all the concession stands inside the mall, or inside the convention center, plus the food court in the mall, plus the restaurants, the sit-down restaurants in the mall, plus all the sit-down restaurants in all the hotels. Plus you can bring your own, if you like. Which a lot of people do. I kept things like coconut water, a thing of coconut water, and Cheez-Its, like a string cheese in my bag for a little pick-me-up and a little hydration, and a bottle of water with me. So, yeah, if you go hungry at Gen Con, you're doing it wrong. I'm sorry. Plus, there's a lot of places that deliver. I saw several Jimmy John's delivery people throughout the weekend. So there's that. But yeah, Gen Con 50. I had a good time, all things considering, as tired as I am. So, we'll see what happens next year, I guess. So we'll see if the sellout continue, if that becomes a regular thing, or if it was just because this year's the 50th anniversary. Next year won't be a massive sellout like it was this year. It'll be interesting to see what they do as far as programming, because it's not an anniversary year, if they'll continue to utilize the football field, or if they'll just go back to using that underground, conference area inside Lucas Oil Stadium. So we shall see. And Gen Con is slightly earlier next year. I think it's the first weekend of August next year. So plan accordingly. So yeah. It was an interesting time. I'm glad it's over, though. I will definitely give it that. I am glad it is. I'm glad it is over, because it's a big convention. It's a tough convention if you're not mentally and physically prepared. Which mentally I think I was. Physically maybe not so much. I probably still need to exercise some more, but. Oh, well. So. But yeah, so I will have links to websites, that sort of thing. You know, all the interviews that I conducted in the show notes, so that people can go and check out all those companies if they are so inclined. And then if any of our listeners also attended Gen Con and want to send in feedback on your Gen Con experience, please feel free to do so. You can send us feedback. The easiest way is to go to our website, which is the5ishfangirls.com. From there, you can either send us a message that way or send us an email, which is 5ishfangirls@gmail.com, or leave a comment on one of our blog posts. This blog post, once this goes up, that's good. There you can also find links to all of our other social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Hopefully everyone enjoyed the pictures I posted over the course of 4 days. If you missed any of those, all those pictures have been posted on our Facebook page as well. If I took a picture of you, feel free to tag yourself and or take that picture and use it however you will, especially the cosplayers. So those are available. Excuse me. And also on our website is a links to the Goodreads book club. So go and vote for September's Doctor Who related book for the Traveling the Vortex book club. There's also a link to our Amazon affiliate link. So if you click on that and then shop on Amazon, we get a small kickback from Amazon. It doesn't cost you any more. And you can use things like Amazon Prime to make your purchases, and it doesn't have to be anything geeky related. So anything from toilet paper to sonic screwdrivers, it all counts. So buy away. And then there's also the link to our Patreon. So we can't say thank you enough to our Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. You do help ease the financial burden that comes with doing this show. So we cannot say thank you enough for that. And also don't forget, whether you support us financially through Patreon or through making purchases on Amazon, a portion of the money we make from those does go to our Fangirls Give Back initiative, which will go to our chosen charities for this year at the end of the year. So when you help us out financially, you are also helping out someone else as well. So going forward, as far as the schedule is concerned, as if Gen Con wasn't enough going into this coming weekend, I will be at the Indie Disney Meet on this coming Saturday in Noblesville at their fairgrounds. I think the event starts at noon, and it should be a really good time. It's free. Free is always good. They only ask that you bring some sort of food item to pitch in. If it's bought from the store, that's great. If it's as long as it's got the nutrition label on it, so those with dietary restrictions or allergies can look for those things. If you do make something homemade, they do ask that you bring an ingredients list, so that, again, for those with allergies and that sort of thing, know what it is they're eating. They will also have Dole Whips, which I'm very excited about. I have not had a Dole Whip in so long. I am grossly overdue for a Dole Whip. And there will be Disney princesses. There will be folks from the 501st and the Rebel Legion there. Yeehaw Bob, who is a staple at Walt Disney World, an amazing performer, piano player, will be there performing. Later in the day, there will be other vendors. There will be authors, Disney authors there. There'll be a raffle. And all of the money made from the raffle and silent auction, all those fun things go towards their charity, Give Kids a World, which is a great resource and facility down in Orlando that helps ill children, have that family Disney vacation with the that helps ease the parents and grandparents and caregivers' minds that traveling and going on vacation does not have to be that big of a burden, even if your child is ill. So that is Saturday, and then Sunday in Bloomington is the Indiana Toy and Comic Expo. So we will be there hanging out, nerding out, talking cosplay, and all sorts of fun things. There'll be toy and comic vendors. There will be some panels. There's a kids costume contest, an adults costume contest, and all sorts of fun stuff. So that is Sunday, and that is $5 to get in, I think, is the going rate for ITCE. So again, a relatively inexpensive day out for your family if you are so inclined. So that is what we have coming up as far as events and public appearances, and that's what I will be talking about, both of those events, on next week's show. So hopefully, my voice can rest going into this coming weekend, and then I'll probably sound like this on next week's show too, actually, more than likely. And that gets us through the end of August, and then September we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out and let you know. So I'm just trying to get to the end of the month, and hopefully things will calm down a little. So and I can get a nice little break before Time Lord Expo coming up in October, which is coming up so quickly. I'm so excited. I'm so excited about Time Lord Expo. So anyway. All right, so I am going to stop talking before I completely lose my voice. And hopefully everyone has enjoyed my recap, and hopefully you guys enjoy the interviews I conducted at Gen Con when I still had a voice. And I guess with that, we shall sign off for this week.
This is Brittany in Bethlehem saying good evening. This is Holly from Wisconsin saying good night.
And this is Rachel in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I will leave you with these words of wisdom that I heard while enjoying my lunch on Sunday while I was catching a performance of Captain Ambivalent and the Accordion of Gold. What is the difference between a graveyard and a crypt? Remains are yet to be seen.
You have been listening to the Five-ish Fangirls podcast. Any and all movies, books, games, and other forms of media mentioned are owned and operated by the respective copyright holders. No copyright infringement is intended or implied.